and welcome to my craft room. I'm Leo from inkymemories.co.uk. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in South Wales, and today on this simple Saturday stamping video we're going to be making a Christmas card. All of our projects in December are going to be festive, from cards and gift packaging, hints and tips on how to package even awkward gifts, gift tags and so on. So lots and lots of Christmas projects coming your way this month. Today we're going to be using the Christmas Gleaming stamp set and the coordinating punches. Now these can be found as a bundle in your August to December catalogue on page 19, along with the coordinating brightly gleaming designer series paper, which is utterly gorgeous, and I would highly recommend this bundle. If you buy it as a bundle altogether, you do save 10% on all of these products, so it is a really good deal. We're also going to be using today some of the brushed metallic cardstock from the August to December catalogue, so that can be found on page 45, and also the Heartwarming Hugs designer series paper, which is on page 9 of your August to December catalogue. So let us get started. As this is a simple Saturday project, I do have all of my pieces pre-cut and ready to go today. So let's quickly run through what we have here. So I have a card base in basic black. Again, this is just a standard half sheet of A4, so that's 14.85 by 21 centimeters and is scored up the middle at 10.5. I have a Whisper White envelope. I have a piece of the Heartwarming Hugs designer series paper, and this is 13.35 by 9. And I have a Whisper White mat for the inside of my card, and this is also 13.35 by 9. I have a piece of real red cardstock here, and this is 10.35 by 6 centimeters. And then I have a couple of scrap pieces of cardstock here. So I've got a scrap piece in Crumb Cake, a piece in Mossy Meadow and Real Red, and then a piece of that brushed metallics cardstock. This is roughly 5 centimeters by 5. Just needs to be big enough for you to punch a piece out. So let's get started with some stamping, and then we shall get on with some punching. So I'm going to need my inner mat and my envelope, of course, and then my scrap pieces of coloured cardstock here. So I've already mounted all of the stamps I'm going to be using today. So we have this holly sprig, the 2 bauble pieces, and the Merry Christmas sentiment from the stamp set. So I'm going to grab some Memento ink to be stamping in today. All of the stamping is going to be in Memento. I'm going to start with my Crumb Cake piece here, and I'm going to take first of all the large bauble stamp. Just press this firmly into the surface of the ink pad. Your Memento ink pad is slightly firmer than our standard classic stamping pads, so you do need to press a little bit harder to get your stamp inked up, but not too hard. You don't need to really smush your stamp into the ink, just slightly firmer. So there we go, that is our first bauble stamped. I'm going to then do the same with the smaller one. So just some firm presses into the ink just to make sure we get a nice even coating of ink on the stamp. And then we're just going to pop that straight down onto the cardstock and lift up, and there is our second bauble stamped. Now also on my Crumb Cake piece I want to stamp my sentiment, so I'm just going to turn this around and again ink up my stamp here. And because this is an inverted stamp, so the sentiment, Merry Christmas, is not inked and the rest of the stamp is inked, this time it is really important to make sure you get a good even coating of ink on there so that you can stamp this nice and clearly. And I'm just going to pop that onto the end of my piece of cardstock there, just like so. And while I have my bauble stamps, I'm just going to do a little bit of stamping, as always, on my envelope and on the inside of my card as well. So I'm just going to grab again my large ornament stamp, and I want to pop this into the bottom right corner of my envelope. And I'm going to pop the little bauble next to it as well. like that. And then the same on the inner mat. I'm actually just going to use the smaller bauble for this one and pop it into the lower right hand corner. So moving on then to our holly stamping. So I've got my two pieces here, a piece in Mossy Meadow and in Real Red, and my holly stamp. I'm going to ink this up in exactly the same way as the other stamps, so just some nice firm presses onto my ink pad. And I'm going to stamp first of all onto my Mossy Meadow piece here. Like I said, these are just scraps of cardstock. We're going to be fussy cutting these today. So just as long as the piece of cardstock is big enough for your stamp, that's all you need. And then onto the Real Red piece, I want to stamp just the berry section. So the rest of it doesn't need to fit on there. As long as I've got my 4 berries on there, that's fine. And then I'm quickly going to pop a bit of holly on the inside of my card as well, just in the upper left hand corner. And also on my envelope. Okay, so that is all of our stamping done. So I'm going to close up my ink so I don't end up knocking anything into it. And we shall get some punching done. So I'm going to take first of all the ornament punches and punch those out. So I've got the smaller one here first of all. Just feeding my cardstock in, lining up the stamped image into the punch, making sure I've got a nice even border all the way around the edge, and then just close the punch to punch that through. I'm going to do exactly the same then with the larger bauble punch. So again, feed the cardstock in, line it up in there, making sure that you've got that nice even border all the way around the edge of your ornament. Once you're happy, just squeeze that closed. So that's all I need the ornament punches for. I'm going to take my piece of brushed metallic cardstock, and I have here the 2-inch circle punch. This is in your annual catalogue. This is one of our standard products. And again, I'm just going to feed this into the punch and then punch that through. So we've got a nice circle of our brushed metallic cardstock. And then I'm going to switch to scissors for the rest of this. So with my Merry Christmas sentiment here, I've got a nice long pair of scissors, and I want to trim around the edge of this, leaving a border. And I find this easier to do with long scissors because you can make one single straight cut. So you get a nice even border, and just do that around all 4 sides. That's our sentiment nicely cut out. And then the last thing that I'm going to do is to fussy cut my holly leaves and berries. So I'm just going to use a smaller pair of scissors for this. Now when it comes to fussy cutting, you want to be moving your scissors, you want to be moving your cardstock, not your scissors. So find an edge to go in at and start cutting around the outside of the image. And like I said, move the cardstock around. So you can see here I'm just turning the cardstock. I'm not moving the scissors in and out. And one of the things I would recommend, especially with these holly leaves with all the sort of little spikes on there, if you have your scissors slightly at an angle this way, so not upright but this way, you'll find that the cardstock on those sort of points on the holly leaves goes over the top then of the scissor blade, so you're not squishing the cardstock as you're cutting it. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm just going to finish cutting out this set of holly leaves, and then also cutting out the berries from the piece of Real Red as well. Okay, so now that we have all of our pieces punched, cut, stamped and ready to go, it is time to assemble. So I'm going to start off by putting together my holly pieces here. So I'm going to pop my berries onto the background. And I'm going to use my take a pick tool for this. I found this makes it a whole lot easier to put these together. So my tip is using the putty end, grab your little set of berries and then take some liquid glue. I'm just going to add a tiny little bit of glue to the back of these little berries here. You don't need a huge amount, it's just enough to stick it down. And then using the take a pick, you see it allows you to really easily move this around and manipulate it into place. Line up your berries onto the background piece and then pop them in place. And then the same again on the little one, just pick it up using the take a pick and pop a little dot of glue just onto the back. Again, you can then use your take a pick tool to rotate it so you can perfectly line it up with the background piece there. And then we have little red berries on our holly sprig. So let us get the rest of the card put together. We'll start with our card base. I'm just going to fold this along the score line and taking my bone folder, I'm just going to burnish that score. Just gives that crease nice stability so it stays closed for us. I'm going to pop in my inner mat using some liquid glue. So again, I'm just going to run a nice thin bead of glue just around the edge of my piece of cardstock, and then put a little swiggle just across the middle, and then put this into place inside my card. And because I'm using the liquid glue, I've got a few seconds before it bonds just to wiggle that mat into place if I need to. And I'll pop then my designer series paper onto the front of my card in exactly the same way. And there are lots and lots of really awesome designs in the Heartwarming Hugs designer series paper stack. None of them are particularly Christmassy as such. They don't have any sort of Christmas motifs on them. There's no Christmas trees or presents or anything like that. Lots of Christmassy colours, so it's all red and green and white. But it does mean that you don't have any sort of specific designs in there that are going to clash. It makes them perfect for any project that you want to put them on. So now I have my designer series paper on the front. I'm going to also add my real red mat on here. So again, just a little bit of liquid glue around the edge. Less is always more with this liquid glue. You don't want it squeezing out of the edges as you put it in place, so just a small piece around the edge. If you ever do get a bit too much, you can always just smooth it out using the tip of the glue holder. I'm going to pop this piece into place towards the lower left corner of my card. Just making sure that I've got a nice even border around the left side and the bottom. And then I'm going to grab my foil piece here and flip this over. And I want to put a couple of pieces of stamping seal onto the back of this circle, just like that. And then I have some of this gorgeous braided linen trim, and I just want to stick this onto the back, onto that stamping seal, in a bit of a loop. So just a single piece like so, just pop that into the adhesive, and then loop it over and back on itself. Again, just pressing it into the adhesive, loop it a second time, and then back through again. And then I'm just going to cut this using my ribbon scissors, my nice sharp scissors. I'm just going to cut it at an angle to help stop it fraying. So then you've got your circle with a nice loop of the braided linen trim behind it. I'm going to grab a couple of dimensionals to put this onto the front of my card. So Just one on either side should be enough to hold this nicely in place. Try not to put it over the top of the trim. It can make the dimensional sort of rock a bit and not sit nice and squarely on your card front. So I'm going to pop this circular piece of brushed metallic cardstock towards the top right corner of that red mat that we have on the front of the card. Just like that. And then it's time to add on all of our little decorative pieces. So I'm going to again flip these over and I'll pop a dimensional onto my large ornament first of all. Fairly central on this one, just to hold it in place. And I'm going to pop this onto the circle of metallic cardstock. And I want to sit this one just over the side, so I want to make sure the dimensional goes on this side so that it doesn't sit over the top of this bauble. So if I turn that over, I want the dimensional on here. So just pop it to the side and then add your second bauble just over the top. I'm going to add another dimensional to the back of my piece of holly. I'm going to sit this above my two baubles here, so I'm going to put my piece of dimensional just on the lower edge where the berries are, so that it sits onto the gold foil and not on top of the actual ornaments themselves. Oh, that didn't land quite right. Let's try that again. There we go, just like that. And then lastly, with my Merry Christmas tag, I'm actually going to take a piece of the edge of my dimensional sheet here. So where the dimensionals kind of sit into the edge, I like to use this sort of straighter, narrower piece here. Just snip it with a pair of scissors and peel that off. And then pop that onto the back of your piece, and you can see that fits really nicely into the back of that. Peel off the backing, and then our sentiment is just going to sit towards the bottom left again, over both the red mat and the edge of the DSP. And that is our finished Christmas card for today. A nice simple one today for Saturday Simple Stamping. We like to keep it nice and simple on a Saturday, but that doesn't make the cards any less gorgeous. Now, I have made a couple of different varieties of this using some of the other designer series paper designs that come with this stack, and also changing up the mat for Pear Pizzazz. There are a couple of different colours in the designer series paper, so you can absolutely change it up with this, sort of play with the different colour palettes in there. But there we go, so 4 more Christmas cards all ready to send for the festive season. Thank you for watching. I really hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please give the video a like and consider subscribing to the channel so that you'll be notified every time I post a new video. All of the products that I've used today are available through my store with Stampin' Up, and there'll be a link in the description box below directly to my store so you can shop these products and have a go at this project yourself. If you have any questions or comments about the project or the products that I've used, or anything to do with Stampin' Up, pop them below. I would be happy to help you out. If you're based in the UK and you don't currently have a Stampin' Up demonstrator and you'd like a copy of our physical printed catalogues, there'll be a link in the description box for you where you can request those directly on my website, and I'll get those straight out into the post for you. Thank you again for joining me in my craft room today, and I hope to see you again very soon. Bye bye.